Welcome to By Your Side, Divorce Law and Support.
Welcome to By Your Side, Divorce Law and Support with Ms. Patricia Sokolich. Pat is a long-time family law attorney and now dedicated divorce coach, helping women navigate the emotional and practical challenges of separation without the stress of hiring a lawyer. I'm Evan Mack, and today we're talking about a very serious but important topic: how to leave an abusive relationship, especially when finances feel like a barrier. This is how to leave an abusive relationship, even if you don't have money. Ms. Pat, welcome back.
Well, thank you for having me back.
Awesome to see you. Awesome to see you. But very serious topic, but it's something that I think a lot of people need to hear and listen to and get your expertise on. What are some of the reasons women stay in abusive relationships even when they want to leave, in your opinion?
Well, there are many. Of course, every individual relationship has different reasons, but I'm going to just hit on the general ones, the ones we see most often. And when we have abusive relationships, there's usually a strong desire for the woman to leave the relationship. What keeps her there, what keeps her locked in, are issues like finances. That's usually the most important one. And then, of course, there's the children. In many cases, when a woman may indicate or make noise saying, "Oh, I had enough, I want to leave," the husband will often say things like, "Well, you can go, but I'm keeping the kids." That's devastating to a mother, to a wife, a mother. It's just devastating. And of course, that is one of the major reasons that women will stay. What they don't understand is that the husband or the father does not have that kind of power to keep the children. What he's saying is, I probably have the money and I can hire the best lawyer and I'll fight you on custody. Now, that, of course, is a very real issue. But again, it shouldn't be a determining issue for women. They should not be afraid to at least start a divorce, go into court, and, of course, attempt to get custody. In many cases, and not all, but in many cases, the woman does retain custody of the children. So it's not a total stumbling block, but is certainly something that instills a great deal of fear into the mother, usually the one that is being abused. And just before we go on to another topic, I just want to indicate that there are 3 different forms of abuse. And I don't think women mostly are clear on that. But there is what everyone is used to hearing about, which is the physical abuse, which involves hurt, wounds, broken bones, etc. That's most obvious. But there are 2 others that need to also be addressed. And that's what we call emotional abuse, where the woman is totally put down in the relationship. She's made fun of. She's told she's no good. She's stupid. She's fat, etc. Also, that involves sometimes what we call gaslighting, which is a term used when whatever the woman says, the husband will say it's not true or it didn't happen, always forcing her to second guess herself. And of course, the first is financial abuse, where the spouse or father has complete control of the monies. And that's also will limit, of course, anyone that's trying to file for divorce or escape an abusive relationship. So I just wanted to make that clear. There are 3 different kinds.
Let's kind of unpack the financial abuse. What does it look like? How can it make someone feel trapped, when that financial abuse is taking place?
Financial abuse, again, comes in all different grades and it appears in all different forms. But I'm going to give you the most obvious ones. Financial abuse is when a woman is working, and once they get married, the husband says to her, "Well, listen, let's put both our checks. We'll deposit everything in a joint account." Now, 20, 30, 40 years ago, that was very common because not that many women were working. And of course, they usually only had one joint account. The problem with that now is getting access to that account. He may say to you, "Put your money in a joint account. We're going to pay bills with it." But if you don't have complete access to that money, then you're in an abusive situation. When I say complete access, if you are denied writing checks without his approval, if before you make any kind of a purchase that might not be just food or gas, any other thing for the house or clothing, if you have to uh, run that by him before you uh, before you purchase something, that's sort of an abusive situation. Now, I'm not talking about the woman that goes out and goes crazy and buys everything from, everything that Amazon has to offer shows up on the step. What I'm talking about is a control so that a woman cannot go out with her friend, have lunch, all right, use the debit card or a credit card. And then when that bill comes into the house, you don't have the husband or spouse saying to you, well, you went out to lunch. Where did you go? Why did you have to spend so much? How many times are you going to go out? If you are questioned about that, that's a problem. Everyone has to have some sort of responsibility to the relationship, but no one gets to have full control. That's when you have a problem. The other issue is if you have different goals with the finances.
Right.
For instance, couples starting out, nowadays the women are working, so they're making probably good money, sometimes more money than the husband. If they have different goals that have never been talked about, the husband only wants to have a house. He wants a big house. He wants a house, a house, a house. The wife, she may say, I would rather do some traveling. So let's cut back on what we're going to spend on a house and at least save some money for traveling. And marriage is a 50-50 deal. And when it's abusive and he says, no, we're not traveling, we're going to put all the money into the house. That's not okay. That's not okay because marriage is a 50-50 arrangement or should be.
Miss Pat, what options might be available for someone who feels like they can't afford to leave this kind of relationship?
That is one of the major stumbling blocks for women. If you feel you can't afford to leave the relationship, you should still go and seek out more information. In other words, someone who's not working is in, of course, the worst position because usually then money is just doled out to them on a weekly basis for food, gas, or whatever, and every penny is accounted for. So it's not even a case where someone like that can start, putting money aside and trying to save up enough where they can at least get out the door. If you are working, then, as I said, there has to be some understanding that part of that money is her money. I'm sure the husband is going to have a separate account where he's going to keep some of his money, whether you call it play money or money that you can just do whatever you want with. So then a woman can be very careful and start putting money into a separate account. That would be her sort of account where she can plan on adding to it till it gets to a point where she might be able to leave. Also, if it's possible, she should try and speak to some sort of a financial professional, maybe a tax accountant that she talk to. Of course, it's always joint when they're doing taxes. But again, there are women professionals out there that do investment work, and they will also give you a free consultation. So if you can bring information to them, such as taxes or whatever you have, they would also be able to explain to you what part is yours and how it can be used as a means for you to get out and to set up a separate life. So those are some of the things that can be addressed. But I want to just say this up front. All of these are suggestions. These are things that have worked for me, with clients in the past, but they're very difficult to do. None of this is easy because usually you're working with a person who's controlling and narcissistic and really doesn't want to hear anything. So you must speak to a professional, whether it's a financial professional, as I said, a divorce coach, or even an attorney. You need to speak to someone about digging your way out of this mess. There's also, if you have no money and the situation is physically abusive and there is a level of fear involved, then you need to just call the cops, get out, and go to a shelter. Shelters will accommodate children. They'll make sure the children get registered in a new school. If you need to go to work, they will afford transportation for you. So if you are really in a situation that is dangerous or physically abusive, where you're ending up in the hospital, then you just need to call the police and get to a safe house. That's the first step. It's not, again, not an easy step, but understand it's important to get out, because when you are in that kind of a physical relationship, you really don't know just how lethal the person is. And so you hear many times about women being killed, murdered, whatever. So it's a serious situation and it needs to be addressed.
So, Pat, how can divorce coaching provide that step-by-step plan to kind of implement some of those things you were talking about so they can leave safely?
Well, by meeting with a divorce coach, the divorce coach can take all of your information, address the whole situation, explain to the person about the different types of abuse, about how you think, well, maybe he's not really abusive. This is a very common thing, especially with emotional or financial, and also all three of them. Because what happens is there's something that we professionally call the circle of abuse. And the spouse may hit you. He may, break your arm and you wind up in the emergency room. And they'll ask you, because they're obligated to, who did this? How did it happen? And they will call the police if they think it's an abuse situation. But women lie. They're embarrassed. They don't want to they don't want to make waves. So they say, no, I fell down the stairs, whatever. But a divorce coach can help you identify what your exact situation is. If it's a question of physical abuse, if it's an emotional abuse that's really hurting you and hurting your children, or if it's financial, where you're so controlled financially that you have no say and no real life in the relationship. So a divorce coach can first help you understand what your particular situation is, and then offer you the best plan to escape it. We also I've worked with many people where I have set up something for them. I call it a go bag, where depending on the level of physical abuse, if they need to just get out of the house and run, they have everything set aside: passports for the children, birth certificates, medication, school records, whatever they feel would be important that they would have to have if they left in a hurry. Wow. So a set of clothing for the children, a set of clothing for themselves. And, it has to be hidden. It has to be someplace where he's probably not going to find it, but available. So when he goes to work, if you have to run, that's what you grab and run.
So Ms. Pat, what kinds of emotional support do women need most when they're trying to leave this controlling and abusive partner?
What they need most is emotional support. They need to understand that there is no shame in what happened. It's not their fault what happened, that they are among thousands and thousands of women that it's happened to, and that there is a way to survive it and there is a way to get out and start over. It's a long, hard road, and they need somebody there to tell them it's okay. These are the steps. We're going to take them one at a time, and we're going to get there. I'll tell you a quick story of one that came to me over 30 years ago. She was from Jamaica, and she was an accountant in Jamaica. Of course, she met someone down there. He came to the States, brought her here. She didn't speak the language, so she wasn't able to get a job at her occupation. But he kept this woman a prisoner in her own house, in the house. The blinds had to be kept down. She couldn't look out the window. She could not go out of the house alone unless he was. So it was such an incredible, but he used to hit her. And the way this woman got out, it was just fate. She was down doing the laundry, and another woman had seen her there many times, hurt and beat up, and said to her, you don't have to stay. You can get out. She told you to go to family court to get an order of protection. And that's how I first met this woman.
Wow.
Again, it took her 3 different times because each time I got her an order of protection, he wasn't allowed at the house. He would come back begging, "I'm sorry, I won't happen again. I love," and she would let him back in. So it took 3 different times where she had to go to court for orders of protection to finally understand she's got to call the police and keep him out. But, they're very manipulative. They are very manipulative and narcissistic. So it's not easy working. But in that case, I I think because I was willing to stay with her, to work with her and believe in her, she was able to get out. Um, but you're not going to find that attorneys don't always have that type of patience or time, and the client usually doesn't have the money for that kind of support. So there are domestic violence shelters, there are therapists, there are, a number of different places they can access where they will get some of that support and direction.
So yeah, you touched on it a little bit. You said about the shelters, you say about the therapists. What are about some other common resources that women should have, if they're afraid to leave, especially if they're maybe uncomfortable with taking their kids or themselves to a shelter or anything else they have?
Nobody wants to go to a shelter with their children. It's there's emotional scars, thinking that they're failures, um, whatever. But if you need to do it, then you need to reach out. There are hotlines. There are so many services numbers, and I can give a list, but um, usually it's best to be on a one-on-one situation because some are better suited to different types of people. But there's hundreds of organizations out there, national, state, and city. You can just go to the police department and they will direct you to some organization. The first step women can take is to just go to family court and ask for an order of protection. That's something they don't need an attorney for. They just have to know they're allowed to do it. See, women don't, they think they need money. They think they need a lawyer to go to court. Family court is just what it says. It's a family court. You don't need a lawyer to go there. You could just go there, file what we call a petition for an order of protection, and then you'll be before a judge the same day, and they will issue or not an order of protection against the abusive party, and then the sheriff's department will serve the other person. So the woman does not have to get involved with telling him or serving him. It's done by the sheriff's department. And then there's 2 kinds of orders of protection. One is what we call a stay away, meaning that the person cannot go back to the house. He has to stay away from the house. He can't call her, email her. He can't have a third party approach her. So that's a complete stay away. The other type of order of protection is what we call a do not harass. So if the situation, depending on what the judge decides, is not necessary for a complete stay away, you can get a do not harass. So that anytime there is an issue or he acts up, the woman can call the police and he will automatically get arrested. So that would be the first step in physically abusive relationships to take. As I said, if you're talking about the emotional, then you need a therapist. You need some sort of a support system
Right.
to help you get through, identify the issue. Most women don't even believe it's an issue until they start talking about it. And of course, then the other is the financial. Financial, again, there are places to go where women can sit down with some sort of a counselor and they will work through the situation to see what your options are as far as leaving a relationship.
And finally, Miss Pat, what's one piece of encouragement you'd give a woman who feels completely stuck right now? What would you say to them?
Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't let the person tell you that what he's providing in life is normal, that he's sorry. Don't don't get caught up in what we call the circle of abuse, which is every time he attacks you and you wind up in the hospital or you have a broken nose or a broken arm or whatever, and then he comes with flowers and candy and says, "Oh, I'm so sorry. It'll never happen again. I was upset because of something at work." It comes with the excuses and the gifts, and then the woman forgets until the next thing is triggered and it starts all over again. So the one thing I could say is try and think. Try and think clearly. Also, think about your children, because the longer you stay, the more exposed the children are to domestic abuse, domestic violence. And honestly, the trigger that causes most women to actually get back, fight back, get in order or whatever, is the children. Once they turn on the children and start yelling or abusing the children, then every woman all of a sudden gets the backbone and just gets up and walks out, and no matter what. So, so I would say don't give up. Look for somebody, look for an organization or someone that can help you. Start with the police. If you don't know anybody, start with the police. But there are plenty of outlets there. There's plenty of support places available. So you need to check them out, even if you have to go to the library. The Amazon has hundreds and hundreds of books on domestic abuse in all forms. So you need to at least start learning about it, and then it'll be easier for you to identify what situation you're in. But don't give up.
Ms. Pat, thank you so much for your time.
You're very welcome.
If you are in safe or an emotionally toxic relationship and don't know how to leave, you don't have to figure it out alone. Pat Sokolich offers private coaching to help women plan their exit, regain control, and take smart and safe steps forward. Visit SokolichFamilyLaw.com to learn more. Now, if you're experiencing abuse, you can also call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 800-799-7233 or text BEGIN to 88788 for support. If today's episode was helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone that might need this crucial information. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.